Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets, a family podcast of pirates and penguins. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, our adventures in our home under quarantine as we make sense of the world as best as we can and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Yes, as you all know that. We're not going to get into the thing we're all doing, so on and so forth. Although I do want to start off by talking about Mass today. We watched Mass online, and I had a revelation might be too much.
Okay.
That this may be the longest I've gone without receiving the Eucharist in my entire adult life. This is 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have missed here and there, or, a couple weeks. I would get to confession, if I needed to, or if I was away and something came up and we couldn't get to Mass, or something like that. But this is the longest I've gone without going to Mass. Never mind going to Mass, but receiving the Eucharist.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I'm gonna kind of guess for a lot of my friends, that's probably similar for them. Yeah. And for converts, perhaps since they converted, or reverts since they reverted. Weird days we're living in. Weird days. But I did want to talk about today's Mass that we watched. It was the Catholic TV Mass with Monsignor. Oh, I forgot his name again. He was the Irish Monsignor.
Was it Egan?
Maybe it's Egan. Or Began? Began?
No.
Bergen.
Bergen.
Yes, I knew it would fall on that. He's the Irish Jesuit who's at Boston College who preached at Cardinal Sean's St. Patrick's Day Mass.
Yes.
Well, they had him there for the Catholic TV Mass this morning. Another great homily. He made the connection between where the word quarantine comes from, which comes from from an Italian word from Venice. During the plague years, they would have ships that would come into port, and they would have to be quarantined. For quarantine, it means 40 days. They would have to be sit in the harbor for 40 days to make sure everybody die off of the plague if they have it, that sort of thing. And so 40 days. And the Italian word for Lent is
quadragesima.
Quadragesima.
So, yeah, something like that.
But also meaning 40 days, and so we're living. Lent is a kind of quarantine in a sense. I thought that was neat. You may hear in the background, probably not. I can probably screen it out, but you may hear some thunder in the background. We have thunderstorms going overhead as we're recording, which is always safe for the equipment. But so it was a good Mass, and I like him. I've never heard him before the St. Patrick's Day Mass, and now we've seen him twice, and I really have enjoyed his both times. He's a good preacher.
I kind of wonder sometimes though, because I used to go to daily Mass when I was at Boston College getting my master's degree, and I could have possibly seen him before at one of the daily Masses there.
Yeah, it's possible. Who knows how long he's been there? I mean, it's been 20 years since you were at Boston College, right?
No. Yeah.
Oh, great. Now I have to bleep you out.
It's been a long time.
Speaking of bleeping out, here's a little tangent. I was watching Alton Brown's YouTube channel. He's been doing Quarantine Kitchen with his wife.
Okay.
And so, with them making dinner, on Sunday nights, I guess. And I guess last Sunday, it was his wife's birthday, and someone had given him a bottle of sparkling wine.
Uh-huh.
And he was going to saber it, use the knife to knock the top off.
That's a bad idea.
Well, he's done it on his show before.
Okay.
Oh, it was a disaster.
It shattered the bottle?
Yeah, and he cussed right there in the stream. Not the really bad one, but the S word. Yeah, he did. Alton Brown being real. That's live video for you. Anyway, so it was a nice Mass with Father Monsignor Bergen.
It was.
But I do miss our priests, Father Mike and the other priests from our parish.
Yeah, they don't seem to have been able to get up the live stream at our parish.
I almost want to go over there and here, let me set it up for you. Although part of the problem, I'm sure, is that at least at Edith Stein, they can't get a signal in there.
There's no Wi-Fi.
There's no Wi-Fi. As far as I can have noticed, I've looked on my phone when I was in there, unless they've got it the signal mask, which you can do. But as far as I can tell, there's no Wi-Fi in there, and you cannot get a cell signal. It's like a Faraday cage. It's like that.
Right. Well, it's a gigantic 100-year-old stone church. Yeah.
It's not gonna. Yeah, the signals can't get through.
I would not be surprised that they haven't tried to wire it for a Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Although one of the other churches in the tri-parishes might.
Our Lady of Lourdes might.
They might be able to do it.
They're a more modern church.
Yeah, built in the 60s. One of Cardinal Cushing's 100 parishes that he built in the 60s. Or 50 parishes he built in the 60s for his 50 closest friends. That's literally the story. That Cardinal Cushing built 50 parishes in the suburbs of Boston to give his 50 closest priest friends as pastors. Because back in those days, when you were a pastor for life.
Okay.
It was a benefice. Like it was you're like a fiefdom sort of
right.
thing. Anyway, we're way off on the tangent.
Wow, we totally, yes.
All right, let's get back on track.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about what we've been doing this week, which every night this week, Monday through Saturday, which was really nice. It was an extra day. The Catholic TV was broadcasting and on demand Cardinal Sean's virtual Lenten retreat. It was like a Lenten mission with Cardinal Sean.
Right.
And it was awesome.
It was really good. It was
a quick 25 minutes.
Yeah, 25 minutes each. So it was long enough to get some depth and some meat, but not so long that the kids were completely freaking out or lost attention. It was very focused.
And the kids were interested in it. They did enjoy it, and they got something out of it. They would repeat things from it.
Yeah, they would repeat stories and things that they'd listened to. They heard. Yeah.
Cardinal Sean always has great, engaging, funny stories, and he's very well read. You could tell he's very well read, very educated. He always has these great literary references.
But I have to say, it's not just that he has funny stories. The stories are always pertinent, on point. Like some priests like to tell funny stories, and then you kind of
up the crowd.
Right, yeah. You kind of get home and you're like, that was kind of pointless. Like you could have cut that.
Yeah.
But Cardinal Sean's stories always really get to the heart of
what the point he's trying to make.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there were a few of the stories which I've heard before. But,
of course.
You've been preaching for probably 50 years on his part, something close to that. He's probably got a few of these stored away after a while.
And you've heard him preach quite a few times.
And I've heard him speak and preach a lot. So yeah. So that was really good. And so it was Monday through Friday, and then because of so much interest, so many people watching it, both locally and nationally, that they added Saturday night, which was great. And you know what? Frankly, he's probably got a whole lot fewer meetings and events that he's doing these days.
Right.
I think it would be awesome if he kept doing it. Maybe not every night, but if he kept doing it. And for our part, if you had said, okay, every night this week at 7:00, we need to sit down in front of the TV and watch Cardinal Sean for a half hour, I would have been like, there's no way we could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, but every night. One night we were a little late, like a couple minutes, but pretty much every night we got to watch it. And there were times you guys were here in front of the TV watching it, and I was watching on my phone in the kitchen while I was doing some cleanup. But
right, yeah.
In general, yeah.
I mean, the thing is that we would never get our act together to do a Lenten mission at our parish. Our parish has in the past offered them.
Oh yeah, but
it's a weeknight, and
You gotta get there. Usually it's 7:00. You gotta get there by 7:15, which means you've got to get them all fed and in their coats and boots and in the car by 6. I mean, if you gotta be there 7:15, we'd have to be in the car by 6:20 at the latest.
Right.
And so that's dinner starts. We got to sit down to dinner at 5:30. And I mean, it's just not.
We're not very good at coordinating dinner and having things after dinner.
And there's no way a Lenten mission is a half hour. It's an hour. The speaker speaks for an hour.
Right.
So then it's 7 to 8, and then there's usually other things. Often they'll have a benediction or other prayers, and so you're not home till 8:39 at the earliest,
which is kind of late for our crew.
Yeah, because then you got to
not for the big kids, but for
you got to roll them out into the pajamas and all the bedtime ritual. Yeah, but this was nice. This is what the technology allows. I mean, there's value. I mean, there's value in being together with your parish community. I won't dispute that, but there can be value in doing it like this too.
Right.
Anyway, it was so good. Only complaint? I have a little complaint.
You have a complaint?
Whoever is doing the editing at Catholic TV or of these videos, cut it out. the smash cut between close up of Cardinal Sean, then far away from Cardinal Sean, like in the middle of sentences or at the end of every paragraph, like they switch, like it's like ADD theater. Like stop, just let them be on the screen.
In general, I think Catholic TV's cameras are too jumpy.
Yes,
they don't want to sit in one place.
Yeah. It's like I get it. All the stuff says people's attention span is 8 seconds, etc., etc. But you know what? This isn't. We're not watching. Hawaii Five-0. What do I say? Westworld. We're not watching regular drama TV. We're watching a guy speaking. Just, I mean, it's okay to cut once in a while, but just not like every so often. Anyway, that's my complaint.
Yeah.
So that's been really good though, and if you want to check it out, you can go to Catholic. Wow, that was a close lightning strike. That was loud.
Very loud.
We're probably about to have some children rolling in a second, looking for reassurance.
We might have to pause for a minute just to go see about that.
But in any case, and if the power goes out, then all bets are off. But what was it? Oh, Catholic TV, CatholicTV.com, and you can watch them yourself.
Right, they're online. They're worth checking out.
Definitely. So now we are on lockdown still. We're the voluntary shelter in place is not mandatory, but they ask us not to do unnecessary travel. When we determined that after more than a week of being cooped up in the house, that getting the kids into some sort of nature was necessary.
Right. And safe.
So you took, while I was recording here with Jimmy, I was recording some Mysterious Worlds with Jimmy on Saturday. You were on your way to
Wallomanapoag Conservation Area.
Okay. Wallomanapoag. Gotta say it fast. Wallomanapoag.
I say it slow because I'm not sure it's a mouthful.
It is quite a mouthful. And why did you go to Wallomanapoag Conservation Area?
So when Bella was taking the merit badge classes at Merit Badge University, the counselor for her nature class wanted to take the kids on a hike to Wallomanapoag to see nesting herons. And I think they also are supposed to have an osprey, though we weren't able to find it. So that hike was sadly canceled, and Bella was kind of bummed. She really wanted to see it. So I said, well, we could still go. It's in Wrentham, Massachusetts, and it's a small little conservation area. Like a lot of towns around here have little nature preserves, conservation areas, town forests. It seems like almost every municipality has one.
Although this one is like a joint project of the state, the National Park Service, and like some several.
Is it? Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, well, that's what the sign said that you took a picture of.
The sign that I took a picture of, but didn't actually stop to read.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So anyway, we didn't really know what to expect. We did bring our binoculars, and I brought the good camera, and I was really blown away. There were at least a dozen or more heron nests. Now, they were sort of on the far side of the pond from the trail where we were at, but
you should explain what makes heron nests so interesting.
So herons have these really big nests in the tops of trees.
Like literally, like sitting at the top of a tree, usually bare trees. Like these swamp trees are dead.
Right. So there's this pond area is actually created by beavers. And so it's full of all these dead trees and snags and stuff.
When the pond floods, it kills the trees. Right.
So we actually also saw the beaver dam, and further up, when we hiked up the trail, we saw a beaver lodge, which was really cool.
Did you say hi to Mr. Beaver?
We did not see the beavers, but, that would have been cool,
too. Invite you in for tea?
Tea and toast.
Tea and toast.
And fish.
Yes. But the heron nests are these huge platforms almost at the tops of these trees.
Right. And there were like a couple dozen herons. I mean, there were a lot.
Yeah, we get some great pictures, and Melanie has them on her blog. I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's at thewindarksea.com is her blog.
So anyway, the kids, we had a nice, good hike. We hiked about a mile into the forest and a mile back, maybe. Nice hike. We brought a picnic lunch, and there wasn't really places to picnic, but we just sat on the side of the trail and ate our sandwiches. It still doesn't really feel very spring-like. It's pretty much brown and gray.
Yeah.
And it was a gray day, but it was nice. We got outside. We saw some wildlife. There were quite a few people there. I think maybe we saw like 20 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Older couples, families with kids.
Keeping your distance.
Yep, we kept our distance. We said hi. It was nice. Yeah, it was a good time.
It's good to get out.
It was very good to get outside, fresh air. The kids could run and scream.
Start the vans, because we haven't driven the van in ages.
Yeah,
This was the first time we've driven the van in a while. That going. Yeah. I'm really bummed I didn't get to go. I'll have to.
Yeah, it looks like rain most of this week, but hopefully we'll get out again soon.
Looks like some sun on Wednesday, maybe.
Maybe.
Possibly. And next weekend we might get up to 60 again, which, Palm Sunday.
Yeah, I'd like to get back out to the Daniel Webster Bird Conservation. They had a lot of really cool birds there, swallows and orioles and all sorts of things.
I was going to say, but next Sunday is Palm Sunday. I wonder if we'll be able to get palms.
We were actually discussing that on one of my homeschool chats. I said, if we can't get palms, what'll we do? And I said, well, when I was in Rome, we actually had olive branches. And I read one book. Whoa, that was a loud crash. I read one book set in medieval England, and the people there in that book were gathering willow branches. So I suggested that, maybe we could just go out to our gardens and find some greenery, something maybe that was starting to get leaves or blooms even.
And cut it down.
Cut a few sticks. And yeah.
Yeah, we get woods. We will do what we must. I'm sure that
we also have a vast collection of palms from previous years.
We do. We will just wave the gray.
We'll wave the dead palms.
The dead brown palms in praise of our Lord, because of our dead brown Lent.
Something like that.
The Great Lent. This is the Great Lent.
It is.
So how is your Withdraw 2020 going? This social media... What do you call it? Social media...
drawing challenge.
Drawing challenge. Okay, that's what I meant.
Which I've turned into a poetry challenge.
How's that been going for you?
It's good. I've actually been really pleased. The prompts have really got my creative juices flowing, and I haven't written on every single one. I've skipped a couple this week, but almost all of them.
And the kids are still doing it too, right?
The kids are occasionally jumping in.
Yeah.
I think it's easier on school days, like on the weekends. We kind of
on school days, it's a way to avoid doing their schoolwork.
Exactly. Well, I think they're kind of sitting at the table with pencils out kind of mode, and that just more naturally lends itself to art projects.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been fun.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting because the word pool is sort of quarantine themed,
but they can also have other meanings.
But yeah, I've been enjoying trying to look for other meanings, and sort of it's kind of fun to twist things sort of away.
Yeah, I would have loved to have done the one that with the fever one, with a Christopher Walken theme. I got a fever.
So somebody actually posted a picture of Christopher Walken with the cowbell.
Awesome.
More cowbell.
More cowbell. Yeah. I got a fever. Just Google Christopher Walken cowbell.
Yeah, you really should.
You'll find it's an old SNL
it's worth
skit.
It
is worth it.
Totally.
So
for fever, actually, I was having a hard time, and then I remembered an unfinished poem from last summer when I took Lucia to the
hospital, the
emergency room with a fever. So that worked. I'm kind of stumped on this weekend's Saturdays and Sundays words, which were soap, and gouge.
Gouge.
Soap is just, it's not a very poetic word. I mean,
But bubbles, soap bubbles, and I think what helps you is when you talk to the kids about it, they often give you good ideas.
you know, the best is Anthony, because when he wants to do a drawing, he like brainstorms like how many off the wall, thinking out of the box ideas can he come up with. And that is really good for me because it gets my juices flowing. And some of my poems have just been like writing down all of Anthony's ideas and then just sort of word association, and then something grows out of that.
Yeah. It's
kind of magic. It's like a collaboration.
Yeah. There's a nice dynamic that works among all of us in this family, that we're feeding each other's creativity.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's a nice creative community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. So, from the food department, we have not been as creative this week. We've kind of been working. We had I was able to grill twice.
Yeah, we had the weird grilled bone-in pork, thin sliced pork chops that you managed to. We managed to pull it off into a really tasty meal.
Yeah,
these were not the pork chops I would have bought.
These are not the pork chops you're looking for.
No, it was the Slim Pickens day last week.
When I want a pork chop, I want a center cut pork chop that's at least 1.5 inches thick, boneless. And what we got were the thin bone-in chops.
But I brined them for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
In a homemade brine, and
it was actually, it was a pretty good brine. It was a very herby brine. It was
it had a bouquet garni and a bay leaf that I boiled on the stovetop.
Yeah.
With some peppercorns, and then cooled, and then added salt and sugar too.
Yeah, and it came out. All the kids liked it, and then we were able to use it for the leftovers for rice bowl as usual, and it worked out really well. That was good.
Yeah.
So, and then we supported one of our local businesses one night when you just could not bear to cook another meal.
Actually, I think that was when I was delaying on the pork chops because I was just looking at them going, I do not want to deal with you.
Well, yeah, we decided to wait on those until we had a night that I could grill them, as opposed to, because cooking them in the house with the smoke and all that bologna is a pain in the neck. So we ended up ordering Indian from a place we hadn't ordered before called Turmeric House.
It was really good.
It was really good. So they're in the same location as a place we used to get from, which was a Nepalese place.
But this place also had Nepalese items on the menu, so I'm wondering if there's a continuity.
There's probably some continuity, like a selling to the next guy, and to someone who worked there, taking it over, that sort of thing. Because
there aren't many Indian places that also serve Nepalese food.
Although you'd be surprised, I think Boston is a bit of a hub for that.
Interesting.
No pun intended, because there's a couple of those in Boston, Nepali places. But yeah, it was so good. It was the surprise one that we really liked was the what was it? The Madras.
The Madras curry with coconut milk.
Yes, that was good. It was
tasty. But it was all really excellent.
Yes, yeah, and that in there was a mango curry that was pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all really good, really, really good. And it's not the cheapest meal by far, but it was it's worthwhile to again support a local business and do something a little extra for when we're all stuck indoors and all that sort of stuff. The other thing that more unusual dish we had was for Friday. We made a dish we hadn't made in a while. Called a Bengali fish stew, and it's from a cookbook. And now I'm going to look at the cookbook. You tell me.
It's called Mango and Curry Leaves.
Oh, okay. Mango and curry leaves.
Yeah. Which you got for a while. It's a beautiful, it's kind of almost a coffee table book with gorgeous photographs.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't made that many recipes from it, but
we got it 14 years ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe. But yeah, I just looked it up on Amazon, and it says you bought this book in 2006.
So this one was, we haven't made nearly as many dishes as I should. I really should pull it out more often.
Yeah.
But this is a really nice fish curry that uses an interesting spice blend that's not your usual Indian spice blend. I mean, it has the cumin and turmeric and coriander, but it also has some like nigella seeds and fennel and some other really aromatics that are great. And then it uses vegetables, but it suggests a few. I think it suggests eggplant and zucchini. and I had neither. So I ended up using potatoes and mushrooms and some leftover broccoli and cauliflower and green beans, and it was really good.
Yeah, I mean that's the funny thing about it is while it calls for using these summer vegetables, the zucchini and eggplant. I mean, it really works with other.
And it really, the recipe did specify you can substitute just about any vegetables you want to in here.
Right. I just looked it up, and on this one blog that has a recipe for it, it says Macrojol is the name of it for babies and toddlers. I'm not sure why.
Why you should feed fish to your baby.
Okay. I guess that's it.
Brain food.
Yeah. And this one says vegetables. Roughly measure 1 cup each of chunks of potatoes, pointed gourds, ridged gourd, sheem, and green beans. I'm fascinated by what pointed gourds, ridged gourds, and sheem are.
Right. I think the recipe I was looking at in the book actually did said that they were substituting the eggplant for the traditional gourds. In other words, these are ingredients which aren't widely available in the U.S. anyway, so even Bengali cooks are substituting things.
So I'm gonna have to look that up. Sheem vegetable.
But yeah.
So that was it was really good. How did the kids like it?
Let's see. The usual suspects did not have anything to do with it. That would be Isabella and Ben. Lucy kind of looked at it, said, I'll try it, tried a little bite, and then no. But Anthony and Sophie both really liked it a lot, and each had a couple of helpings.
Yep.
Anthony did his usual, I didn't really want to eat the vegetables. But
especially the potatoes.
Yeah. He does not like vegetables.
Although you did get cod for the others.
So basically, I bought 3 pieces of cod loin, and I used 2 for the fish stew, and I cooked 1 in the oven, just plain with salt and pepper. And so the non-adventuresome kids just had plain cod.
So
and that worked okay.
Yeah. I would recommend this book, if you get a chance to check it out, check it out at the library or just see it. It's really a really nice book. I mean, it's a beautiful book with really nice travel writing in it.
It'd make a nice present for the person in your life who likes adventuresome cooking or eating or, and it's really well, as I recall, it's been a while since I've looked at it. It's got really beautiful descriptive writing as well as the recipes.
Yes. Some of the recipes, one of the reasons we haven't made more of those recipes is they call for things like curry leaves and other ingredients that are kind of hard for us to come by.
We need to make some expeditions to our local Indian grocers.
That's the thing is that we do have Indian grocers not far away, like in Quincy, right over there. So we really got to get over there. Anyway, so that's what we've been eating, and so that's been good. So what are we reading this week? So we've been reading and watching.
I'm almost done with Eifelheim, and I'm barely getting started with Black Lamb, Grey Falcon. I need to sit down and do it, but I've been kind of falling asleep.
Black Lamb, Grey Falcon. Was that one you talked about already?
I thought I did.
Yeah, you did. I was
my online book club.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right. It's nonfiction.
Yep.
Which I'm sort of bogged down in the introduction right now.
Oh, that's the one about the woman who went to
she went to Croatia.
Croatia. Yeah.
The Balkan Peninsula.
Speaking of which, I have a book that's related to Croatia.
Oh, do you?
Very different though. So I finished reading the latest book in the Gray Man series by Mark Greaney. It's called 1 Minute Out, and this might not be everybody's cup of tea. The Gray Man is a former CIA spy, direct action, ground branch guy. He's an assassin.
So it's a spy thriller sort of book?
Yeah, Tom Clancy style. In fact, Mark Greaney, the author, used to be Tom Clancy's researcher and then co-author, and then when Clancy died, he wrote several more books in the series. And now he's branched out to his own thing, which he's doing very well with. And the character, the Gray Man, he's a private assassin for hire, but he only goes after bad guys. Like he'll only kill or hunt down the worst. He doesn't. And I get the morality of, obviously that's still murder. It's still a sin. So I take it with a grain of salt. But still an interesting character. with interesting morality that he has to struggle with. In fact, he struggles with it at times, and struggles with the knowledge that what he's doing is immoral, and yet he feels like he's got to do these things to stop these bad people. So this one is about human trafficking, which is a little hard to read at times, because the knowing what happens to these young women who get trafficked. It was, and having teenage daughters, it was a little tough to read at times, but not too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. But his other books in the series are pretty good, and if you like spy thrillers, you should definitely check out Gray Man series. It's better than most. So the other thing that we did today was we finally got around to watching, because I'd already bought it on digital, The Rise of Skywalker with the kids.
Yeah, I was in the kitchen cooking.
You were cooking.
I baked 2 loaves of bread today, and I made some beef stew, and the beef stew took forever.
Yeah, it was really good.
I had like 3 pounds of beef to brown, and that just took ages.
It takes a long time.
Yeah.
But so we watched The Rise. We'd seen it with the kids in the theater. I think we talked about that before. We'd seen it in the theater with the kids.
We saw it on Lucy's birthday.
Was it really Lucy's birthday? Oh yeah, January. Yeah, the beginning of January. So now we got to watch it again and enjoy it, and I can make jokes in it now. This time, like Babu Freak. Hey, the Babu Freak. Remember Babu Freak?
Yeah, cute little guy.
Babu Freak's my oldest friend, says C-3PO.
Right.
So a lot of fun. The kids enjoyed that as much, and then we watched a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff, which was kind of interesting. And then Isabella's like, "Oh, I wish I could just read it though. I just want to read. Like, I just so much prefer reading about it instead of watching movies." I'm like, "Well, I did buy the book, so I'll put it on your Kindle."
She's almost done with it.
Yeah, like literally
and Sophie,
3 hours ago.
When I went in to tuck Lucy in, Sophie had started reading it on her Kindle too.
So funny. It's the extended edition, quote unquote, which like has extra scenes, which I'm guessing is not much.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really felt compelled to pick up a novelization of a movie. To read. I've read the novelizations of every Star Wars movie, starting with the original back in 1978. I bought the novelization by Alan Dean Foster. I remember reading it and going, "Whoa, what? There's more in here than in the movie." Huh? It's so funny. I would never like pick one of those up.
Yep. And then I remember reading the novelizations of the Star Trek ones too. What other novels? I'm not trying to think of what other novelizations of movies I've read. Not many. I mean, mostly Star Wars and Star Trek. I'd have to think about that. I mean, I've read novels that movies were based on, which is a different thing.
That's the opposite.
That's the opposite, the other direction. But yeah. I'm now I've looked at, and now I want to think about what novelizations have I read. So, Rise of Skywalker. Now, there's 2 hours of the extras, digital extras, that should
watch. Keep you busy.
That should keep me busy for a bit. All right, so that's what we've been, and then of course the usual stuff I watch on a regular basis, including Star Trek Picard, and
I still haven't seen a single episode of that yet.
Well, they've just finished the season, and it's gonna be a long time before anything comes out. They've Netflix just entirely shut down all production.
Wow.
Like everything is shut down. Like I was just watching today. This guy was talking about like all the stuff. Everything's on hold. Like Star Trek Discovery, they thought was going to come out in April or May, even indefinitely on hold. Like because the special effects guys, all the post production guys are still working from home. Like
right.
And these are gigantic files. You can't just like download them easily. They have and you got to be security and all the other stuff, and the computers at home are nowhere near as powerful as the stuff at work. It's just a whole. So all this stuff, all of Hollywood. I'll be surprised. Like who knows when we're going to get any of the stuff we wanted. The next season of The Mandalorian, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, now you're making me sad.
Trust me, you're not sadder than I am.
No, I hadn't thought about it really until now.
Yes, but but there's plenty of old Star Trek to watch. And well, the good thing is you haven't watched Star Trek Picard yet, so you could watch it.
I could.
Yes. So the last episode just aired from this season. Yeah. So
the thing is, it's not the sort of thing I like to watch by myself. I don't know.
All right, I'll watch it again with you. And
twist your arm.
Twist my arm.
Yeah.
and then I could go, oh, watch this part.
Oh gosh, maybe I won't. I hate it when you do that.
oh, this is good. Well, the problem is when you watch TV, you don't look at the TV. And so stuff that happens on the screen, you're looking at your computer instead of watching. And I'm like, no, you missed it. You missed the thing. Well, look at the thing on the TV. It's not just like an audio book. You can't just listen to it.
I know. Yeah, whatever.
Moving on.
Okay.
So the other thing we wanted to talk about was the Pope's Urbi et Orbi message. That was the big thing this week.
That blew me away. Like I really wanted to watch it because it's sort of a big deal. But in my mind, it was just like, yeah, we should watch that. Just like, we should watch
Cardinal Sean's
Lenten Retreat.
Yeah.
But like from the very first moment when the camera turned on and there's St. Peter's Square empty, vast and empty and rainy. And then in that big, gigantic space, this little tiny
83-year-old
old man in white limping across up the stairs. It just tugged my heart. But that was almost like just the beginning, because the gospel, for one thing, was just amazing.
Mm-hmm. The choice of the storm on the sea as the gospel to address what we're going through.
It was perfect.
Just I love that imagery of the apostles are terrified. Jesus is sleeping, and they turn to him and go, Jesus, why are you freaking out like we are? But don't you care we're about to die?
Yeah.
After everything they'd seen, they still didn't understand.
And I thought Pope Francis's remarks on it,
yes,
were really
spot on.
They were perfect. Like he said, that they believed in him. Like, what were they doubting? They weren't doubting that Jesus had power to calm the storm. They believed he could.
Which is why they wanted him to wake up.
But what they doubted was that he cared. Don't you care? And I really think that, more than anything, resonated with me. Does God care? We're here, we're crying, we're suffering, we're crying out to him. Does he care? Is he listening? And I think that is the pertinent question for so many of us right now. Even though we believe in him, we want to trust in him, but when you're in the midst of the storm, it's really hard to feel that God cares.
So and I was a little surprised that it was more than just a blessing. I thought it was just going to be like a prayer.
Right.
And then so the prayer ends and his reflection ends, and then he turns around and goes into the portico.
Well, no, first
he goes to the icon.
He venerates the icon of
Our Lady Help of the Roman People.
Maria Salus Populi Romana, which actually I saw when I was in Rome, and I bought a postcard of it, and then I framed it, and it's hanging in our dining room, that icon. So it's kind of special to me. Like it's one of those things that I loved well enough to buy a postcard of and frame it. And I love the fact that this is the icon that Pope Francis, anytime he travels on an apostolic visit,
he visits before he goes,
and then when he comes back.
Yes, like checking in with mom.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful devotion that he has to Our Lady as the Bishop of Rome, to Our Lady who is the health of Rome.
Right. And this icon is 1500 plus years old. 1800 even?
This icon came to Rome in the 500s, at the time when Pope St. Gregory the Great was Pope.
Right.
But the tradition is that it came to Rome from Crete, and that it might very well be one of the icons painted by St. Luke himself.
That's interesting.
Right. The tradition is that this is by the hand of St. Luke.
Oh, wow.
And art historians agree that it
could be that old.
It could be at least as old as the 5th century.
Well, it's at least as old as the 5th century, but
right.
they agree.
But art historians looking at it say that it's definitely
but it could
believable.
Be as old as 1st century.
Possibly.
Wow. So, but Pope St. Gregory the Great carried it in procession around Rome during a plague, right?
Somebody did. I don't remember if it was Gregory.
I thought it was then. But then there was also the crucifix from San Marcellus Church, which in 1519, I think it was something around there. The church burned.
The church burned down, and the crucifix was the only thing.
A wooden crucifix was the only thing untouched in the church.
Right. And so it was proclaimed to be a miraculous crucifix.
Right. And then when there was a plague in Rome, the Pope at the time, I forget which one now,
carried it around in procession through all the neighborhoods of Rome. And the plague, it took like weeks
to carry it
through all the neighborhoods,
which I could see.
Yeah. And after he'd gone through like the last part of the procession, that was when the plague ended.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is a crucifix that has miraculously survived a fire and has been associated with healings from during a time of plague.
So the Pope venerated the icon and then venerated the crucifix.
Which he already made a pilgrimage to the churches where these were last week.
Yeah, he walked to them.
He walked between the two, which is a long walk for an elderly man like he is. And so I said, wow, it would be really nice if they were able to be carried in procession again. But I think he's much too frail to process.
To walk through all of Rome.
But as you pointed out, by bringing them to St. Peter's Square and then live streaming his blessing, in a way, he is able to bring them closer to us than if he walked through the streets of Rome, because he's able to bring them to the whole world.
Right. I mean, they carry
all of the people
through the streets of Rome because the people of Rome can't see it otherwise. But now they can all see this at once on TV and on their computers and whatnot, and so can everyone in the world. And
I saw one comment from somebody on Twitter that had been repeated on social media from an Italian saying, "I've always been an atheist. I've never believed in God, but seeing this moment, I'm crying and I'm begging God for healing and to preserve us in this time of crisis."
Right. And see, but that wasn't even the end. Then it was benediction and adoration. I mean, it was, and to have Jesus brought to the portico, brought out to the entrance, then a time of prayer and adoration, and then the Pope carries Jesus through the door to out to the piazza, and as the bells of Rome ring and horns honk, as Italians do, and everybody, and he blesses Rome and the world with Jesus.
It was beautiful in the rain.
Just unbelievable. It was an amazing. This is what I said afterward. I posted this online. I said, "Consider that this, more than any encyclical or synod, may mark the most significant moment of the pontificate of Pope Francis, blessing the world while imploring the Lord to deliver us from the pandemic."
Yeah, it was, and just the emptiness. Like, you can't imagine just the Pope being in St. Peter's Square with nobody there.
Right.
It was eerie, and
speaking to an empty square. Just that image of him walking alone up the steps. Just, I mean, without, an umbrella, without the extra, just in his plain, simple house cassock. I mean, it was really, really affecting. It was really moving. It was such a moment.
And afterwards, I mean, I cried a little bit during the blessing itself, especially during the litany, but afterwards, like all evening, I felt this profound sense of peace, just like a warm, heavy feeling through my whole body,
like a warm blanket.
Yeah, like being wrapped in a blanket. It was just amazingly, like, wonderful.
Right. Yeah, it was really an amazing moment. And it will stay with me, that quotation, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" That what Jesus says there. And it's easy to be afraid right now.
Very.
I read the news. I try not to read too much of it. I don't spend a lot of time when I'm scanning Facebook. I kind of try to scroll past to a lot of the stuff that's doom and gloom. And I try to stick with fun, light stuff as much as I can. I'd still check out on at least once a day what is actually going on. And then we sometimes have late night conversations that we don't want to have in front of the kids. talking about things like, what if both of us got sick and were hospitalized with it? Who would take care of the kids? And questions like that come up. So there's a lot of anxiety, but this reminds me, why are you afraid? Have you no faith? That doesn't mean that bad things won't happen to us. Jesus doesn't promise that bad things won't happen. People die. Christians have died in horrible ways throughout all of history. There's no promise that it won't happen to us. But the promise is, if you have faith, then God will be with you. If you have faith, and you are in a state of grace, then on the other side of that suffering is eternal bliss. And that's the one thing you can, in the eternal bliss, as you talked about in the St. Patrick's Summer book, the recusant priest talking about.
That was a beautiful passage that we read this week. We've been reading our way through St. Patrick's Summer, which I've mentioned before. And so the children in the story, there's a big old mansion that they sometimes visit. And while they're there, they meet, one of the saints that they meet is actually this priest who isn't named in the story, but who, during the time of Queen Elizabeth, celebrated a mass in this particular house and then was caught and tortured and killed. And he's telling the children in the story about how he died, and they're horrified.
Because he tells them he was drawn and quartered.
Right. And he says, like, in the middle of it, fortunately, he died, and then he was immediately in heaven. And they're like, that's horrible. And he said, well, he's very matter-of-fact about it. He's like, well, yeah, it was a really bad period of suffering for, however long it was. He named the particular amount of time. But the joy since then has been really good, and I'm going to have it forever. And I think there's something about the very matter-of-fact way of presenting the suffering and the joy that comes afterwards that's really just very moving to me. And Marigold Hunt does that so beautifully. She also does it, again, we haven't read that yet, but we will get to it this week, when they meet St. Cecilia, who also dies a really terrible death.
Right.
And when she tells them about it, she's very cheerful.
Yeah.
And I've read a lot of martyrdom stories which really emphasize how terrible the suffering is. And I really like Marigold Hunt's, where she really emphasizes how beautiful heaven is and how small the suffering is compared to what waits
right
afterwards, which I think is really a great message for kids, but for all of us, that God is there in our suffering, and that when we look back on it from the other side, all the suffering of this world is really, really small compared to eternity.
The eternal bliss of heaven.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not seeking to go soon, but I think part of it, I didn't want to presume on God. Right. God will save us. He won't allow the disease to hit us. I'm not going to presume on that. But what I hope it doesn't. I ask that if this cup can pass us by, that it will. But I put my faith in God, and I put my trust in Jesus, that whatever it is that happens is His plan, and that He gives us the grace that we need to do it, to get by, and that's enough, and that's why this Urbi et Orbi prayer, it gave me peace, because it felt like, this is what the Pope's saying. Why are you afraid? Have you no faith? Jesus has got this. Jesus has got you in the palm of His hand. It's Cardinal Sean said a few times this week in his retreats. He quoted, I've written your names on the palm of my hand, or carved your names, I think is what it actually says. But so have faith. These are tough times, but we keep our humor and we get by. So I think that about does it, right? Do you have anything else? So before we wrap up, I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including this week John S., John V., Keith K., Lawrence Z., and Maria C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest if you can, join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We would very much appreciate that, and we are very, like I said, we are very grateful. So, what do you think of our discussion, of anything we had to talk about? If you have anything you'd like to add, we'd love to hear from you by commenting at sqpn.com/bets. That's BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or you can send an email to bets, BETTS, at sqpn.com, and we'll put relevant links to the things we talked about in the show notes there. If you can, please, we'd really greatly appreciate it if you could write a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. I don't think we've gotten a review in a while, so we'd really appreciate it if we get one. That it's not just ego; it helps juice the algorithms and says, "Oh, people are reviewing this and they like it. We should show this podcast to more people so that their audience can grow." And likewise, if you could share the podcast with your friends, share a link to an episode or to the podcast itself, we would really appreciate it. So until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.